Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all of you to this 14th edition of webinar organized by Jharkhand Legal Literacy Forum. Friends, we continue with our efforts in providing the platform wherein the members of legal fraternity can enrich themselves by knowledge sharing. In the past, you all have witnessed that on this forum, honorable judges of the Honorable Supreme Court, honorable judges of the High Court, Jharkhand High Court, senior advocates, Advocate General, Additional Advocate General have shared their views on various topics of law. And today, we have a young and a dynamic advocate who is extremely proficient in law, Mr. Pandey Neeraj Rai, Advocate, Jharkhand High Court. Now, I would just take this privilege of also introducing Shri Pandey Neeraj Rai, Advocate, Jharkhand High Court. Mr. Rai is an advocate practicing in Jharkhand High Court and in the trial court for the last 22 years. Since his 5 years law graduation in 1998 from Symbiosis Law College, Pune. He takes pride to be born in the family of a martyr. His great-grandfather, Shahid Pandey Ganpat Rai, was hanged by the British in 1858 at Shahid Chowk, Ranchi, which is why the place is called as Shahid Chowk. This is how Pandey Neeraj Rai identifies his family's first relationship with law, as in conflict, which marked a one-day trial and death penalty without appeal and confiscation of properties. He was himself leader of the law college, the university's representative. In fact, the first non-Maharashtrian to be elected as the university representative. He was also a part of the topper of his college. Now back to Ranchi. After his college at Symbiosis Pune, Mr. Pandey Neeraj Rai learnt the ABC of his practice in the chambers of senior advocate Mr. Pralay Kumar Sinha and of his father, an eminent advocate in Ranchi again, Mr. Pandey P.N. Rai Pankaj, whom we fondly call him as Pankaj Babu of the trial court. He is also associated with a law firm, Lexolf Partners, being operated from Delhi by his younger brother, Mr. Sangeet Rai, who is also there with us in the webinar, and his sister-in-law, Rachita, who is an advocate on record in the Honorable Supreme Court of India. Apart from his foremost interest in law, regardless of any particular branch, he is fond of playing musical instruments, signing, mimicry, and sport activities. Friends, the topic which has been chosen by Sri Pandey Neeraj Rai for this webinar is Section 37 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. Now I request our honorable guest speaker to kindly share his views with us. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. My pranam to my elders, my seniors. I could see the senior advocates were also there, and some members of the judiciary also. Many of the students, law students, are also here, apart from my friends in the bar. Friends, the topic which I have chosen is with regard to limitation in Section 37 appeals under the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1997. Before I go into my topic, I must express my thanks to the Legal Literacy Forum of Jharkhand and Mr. Rahul Sabu for organizing this and inviting me. I'm not sure whether I qualify for this privilege, but I'll try to justify my presence here by sharing certain views on certain nuances of this particular branch of law, which I have learned from my experience in my short stint of practice. Friends, let us first set the stage for our discussion on this topic. What I aim at is discussing the provisions of Section 37 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, which is in the nature of the second stage challenge against an arbitral award. There is somebody presenting. Anyways, so Section 37 challenge, which is prescribed under the 1996 Act, as a background. The background is in the existence of an old Act of 1940. And before I go into the nitty-gritties of this law, I must apologize first to some of the senior members of the bar who are present here, who are already aware of this topic, because there are certain students. At times I'll be oversimplifying the issue, which may prove to be a little boring for the seniors who already know the subject. And I would apologize to the junior members of the bar, the students who are present here, for being complicated at times, because I have to explain the nitty-gritties of this law, how it has taken its shape. The topic is limitation in Section 37 appeals. What went wrong? You must be wondering why these last few words, what went wrong? What I'm trying to point out is with regard to certain complications which have developed with the way legislature had drafted this legislation and the way our superior judiciary has interpreted this law. We, the lawyers, we learn and earn on the fact that there are conflicts between the legislature and the judiciary. It is always happening that the legislature which has made law is to be interpreted by somebody else, the judge. And therefore the problem arises. What went wrong? The first thing is, what went wrong is that we can't go back to the person who has made the law to ask him what was his intent. So it is somebody else who is deciding what was the intent of what somebody else said. The judges are supposed to say what legislature has said. In this background, certain developments have taken place with regard to Arbitration and Conciliation Act and with regard to, in particular, Section 37 appeals. Friends, those who are new to this law, the students in particular, there are many students from the law college I see, the students and my new friends in the bar, my friends in the bar who have not practiced on this side, let me just clarify what is arbitration. It is kind of a substitute for a civil suit in the sense that when there is a dispute between two parties, they decide to have it settled through what is called as private tribunal. The arbitrator, who is the judge, he can sit at home, he can sit in a hotel, in a banquet hall, in a public forum, or in a formal atmosphere, and he can hear the arbitral proceedings and they take a decision. What he decides as a private tribunal. I'm using this language because it has been used by the courts, Supreme Courts, and it has got some relevance to the topic that we are discussing. What is decided, the judgment, it is known as award. And that award is subject to certain challenges like every judgment is. Under the 1996 Act, unlike the old one, an award, as soon as it is passed, partakes the character of a decree subject to a time gap. There has to be lapse of period to period of challenge. But it is as good as a decree in the sense, I'm saying it in a limited sense, that the earlier law was that when an award was passed, one had to go to a court and get that award confirmed as a decree, declared as a decree, and then it could be enforced in an execution proceeding. The new act has made a provision, an award is passed that partakes the character of something which is executable, and the aggrieved party can prefer a challenge. Now there are three stages of challenge which is usually available. The first stage of challenge is before a civil court normally. In many parts of the country, the high courts have got the original jurisdiction to try suits. So the test is whichever court would try suit will hear the first challenge to the award. The first challenge to the award comes up under Section 34. I will be using this expression 34 and 37 time and again in my discussion. 34 is the first challenge. 37 is the second challenge. In our state, the second challenge of 37 is preferred before High Court. The difference between a place like Ranchi and say a place like Delhi is that the first challenge itself is preferred before the High Court, and the second challenge under section 37 is preferred before a division bench of the High Court. That's and ultimately, finally, the matter goes to Supreme Court under Article 137. There are circumstances in which even the section 37, that is the second challenge, used to be preferred before the lower court, before the district judge. There are certain judgments on that aspect, but that's besides the point. Now there has been a development in the sense that the Commercial Courts Act has been amended in 2018 with effect from May 2018, and it has made a provision that the state government, with the consultation of the Chief Justice, can provide for appointment of officers subordinate to the district judge, lower than the district judge is the language, as the commercial court judge, which if happens, then the first appeal would lie before the district judge. But all that is, of course, I'm just speaking about the tangential things. All that is besides the point. Whichever court it goes to, ultimately, the second challenge under section 37 goes before a particular forum. And in all these challenges, one challenging aspect which is confronting the advocates and the litigants there is the limitation for preferring the challenge. We all know that for normally for all the statutory challenges, there is a statutory limitation. In the new act, legislature has done something and has failed to do something, which is giving rise to all these issues which I am discussing. What it has done is, with regard to the first challenge, that is under section 34, it has not only prescribed the limitation, but it has prescribed an outer limit of condonation. Section 34 has the provision, limitation is 3 months, which going by General Clauses Act may mean, depending on the months that intervene, which may mean 91 days or 88 days or 89 days. But let's call it, for the sake of discussion, 90 days. 90 days is the limitation for section 34, first challenge. And for condonation, there is a limit of 30 days more. This 30 days is usually called as grace period in the judgments of the Supreme Court. Condonable period is grace period. So 90 days plus grace period of 30 days, and by now it is fairly well settled that this grace period cannot be condoned in any circumstance. There is a judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court, I'll refer to that in later part of my discussion, which says even using Article 142, that cannot be condoned beyond the grace period. So 120 days is the maximum that one can have. This is what legislature has done. Now coming to what legislature has not done is with regard to section 37. With regard to section 37, that is the second stage challenge, which is known as appeal. Legislature has in the act been silent about any limitation whatsoever. What I'm saying is a controversial proposition. Many may not agree with me, but reading the act as a whole, you will not find that section 37 is made subject to any statutory limitation. No specific period is prescribed. And this omission led to some disputes at some points of time. 1996, the act has come, much water has flown. Till 2008, there was no Supreme Court judgment saying that 90 days would be the limitation, but it was being followed as a matter of practice. Nobody was objecting to it. And since under the old act, the limitation of 90 days was there, because of applicability of Limitation Act, read with some provisions of CPC, which I'll come to. Therefore, everybody proceeded under an assumption that there is a limitation of 90 days for section 37 appeals. And ultimately, the last nail in the coffin is two judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court, which have come in 2017 and 2020, both reported in 2020, where Supreme Court has taken into account the objects and purposes by a cryptic judgment, if I may very humbly say so, running in one page or 2 pages, effective portion of which is only 4 or 5 lines. Supreme Court has said that 120 days will be the maximum permissible limitation under Section 37 appeals also. It has tried to borrow what is provided for in 34, which legislature never provided for 37. So therefore I say, good for the lawyers, opportunity to learn, opportunity to earn, more disputes, more confusions. One fine morning, we get up to understand that there would be no condonation henceforth in a case which has already lived 120 days after passing of the judgment. It has created a very strange situation. Imagine the plight of those individuals who, let us assume that there was a 90 days limitation, who proceeded under the assumption that 90 days have expired, and we can always resort to Section 5 of the Limitation Act for condonation, where Section 5 of the Limitation Act has put no period of limitation. The judgments of the Supreme Court are that reasonable, the sufficient cause being shown, any period can be condoned. And in that scenario, somebody wakes up to find who slept on 119th day for some good reason, who had not been able to prefer a challenge, wakes up to find that 120 days have gone and my right has been forfeited for all times to come. Imagine the plight, the situation. And unfortunately, if I may very humbly use this word, unfortunately, the judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court which have come recently, they do not make it applicable from a future date. So those appeals which have already got time barred uncondonably before the judgment has come are gone for all times to come. Now this is what has agitated my mind to go into this aspect, examine it, prefer the research with the limited capability that I have, which I have done for your kind consideration. I'll be putting my arguments, and to see as to whether limitation is there or not. If it was not there, whether Supreme Court could have introduced it or not, and if they could have, whether they have done it properly or not, fairly or not. We are entitled to make fair criticism of a Supreme Court judgment also, which I propose to do. Now coming back to the main point, the problems. What went wrong? The first wrong, as I pointed out, was by the legislature, who failed to act according to the object of the statute, took enough care to provide for limitation and non-condonable period for Section 34, the first challenge, but remained careless to provide for the same non-condonable period for 37 appeals, assuming there was any limitation for Section 37 appeals. Now imagine what could be the purpose. Somebody prefers a first challenge. That first challenge he prefers, and legislature deemed it appropriate to provide that there shall be no extension of limitation further beyond 90 days plus 30 days. The reason was that after this, a litigant who has been indolent enough, who has not been vigilant, should not be granted any further time. The object and purpose was speedy disposal of arbitral disputes. We all see in our practical experience, arbitration takes some time. Then the challenge is preferred, it takes some time. Then Section 37 appeals, they take some time. Article 137 or Article 136 SLPs take some time. Ultimately, when would a person who is beneficiary of an award will get the remedy, we don't know. Legislature has tried to make certain amendments. In 2015, with effect from 23rd of October 2015, certain amendments have been made with regard to the provisions of Section 34 and 36 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, by which what has been done is, expressly it has been provided that if a money decree is there, if an award is there in terms of money, which is as good as a money decree, then the principles laid down in CPC, Civil Procedure Code, for execution of money decree will apply, which means when you go and execute your money decree or a monetary award, and somebody else challenges it and asks for a stay, then he is asked to satisfy the court as to what is the irreparable loss, which is the principle of injunction. What is the irreparable loss that you are getting? If in monetary terms you are satisfying an award, it is something which can always be compensated in terms of money back when the award is set aside. So while legislature took care to provide for some limitation in 34, right at the time when 1996 Act was made, and then again by providing for certain provisions with regard to these execution, etc. At the time when 2015 amendment was made, followed by the later amendment of 2018-19, legislature failed to touch Section 37. So going by Section 37 plainly read, assuming that there was any limitation of 90 days, it was condonable, unlimited by virtue of Section 5 of the Limitation Act. Now, to meet this situation, it seems that the Honorable Supreme Court in those recent two judgments of Varindra and NV International, which are reported in 2020 Volume 2 SCC, page 109 and 112. In fact, page 109 is NV International of 2020, which quotes the short judgment of Varindra in its own judgment. So reading one judgment is enough. Taken together, NV International runs in 2 pages only. And what has been discussed in that judgment, what is the possible shortcoming in that judgment, and what is the fallout of that judgment, we'll discuss later. But before that, I would like to touch the first aspect, which has been perhaps missed out even while Varindra was being decided or NV International was being decided. Because in those recent judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court, when they have provided that 120 days would be the limitation, they have started with the language that what we are doing is, language is like this. What we have done is that the limitation of 90 days, which has been prescribed by the statute, as if statute has prescribed, which I say might not be true. What we are doing is the limitation of 90 days, which has been prescribed by the statute, we are giving a grace period of 30 days. In fact, they have not given a grace period of 30 days. They have curtailed the unlimited grace period of Section 5. We'll come to that again later. First thing is whether at all there is any limitation period of 90 days prescribed for Section 37 appeals. And if it is there, where is it? There is a very interesting discussion possible on this aspect. To read a limitation of 90 days in Section 37 appeals, in my humble submission, provision should be there either in the Limitation Act, which should say that such and such is the limitation for appeals under Arbitration and Conciliation Act, or it should be provided in the Arbitration and Conciliation Act as it is provided for Section 34. It can be said, like it is there in Section 34, that such and such period is the prescribed period for limitation, or they could say that the provision in Limitation Act provided for, say, CPC appeals, CRPC appeals is incorporated by reference in this statute. Nothing has been done. With some sense of responsibility, I say, Arbitration and Conciliation Act is silent, and with equal sense of responsibility, I say that the Limitation Act is also silent. Howsoever surprising it may appear to you, let me clarify. Arbitration and Conciliation Act says under Section 43 that our Limitation Act will apply to arbitrations as it would apply to court proceedings. We are here talking about court proceedings, Section 37 appeals, and not arbitration. And the reason why legislature had to provide for this Section 43 in the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, that Limitation Act will apply to arbitrations, is that had they not provided so, there would be no limitation to arbitration. In arbitration, one would go for a time-barred claim, say more than 3 years old claim of money, which one cannot file a suit for. So in order to make it harmonize with the law relating to limitation on original proceedings, court proceedings, they said that with regard in arbitrations also same limitation will apply. So it is for arbitration. It is the reason why I say that in the absence of this Section 43, Limitation Act will not apply to arbitrations is because arbitration is before a tribunal, private tribunal, and it is settled pronouncement of the Supreme Court, series of pronouncements that limitation prescribed in the Limitation Act applies to proceedings in courts and not to tribunals. One of those judgments would be Consolidated Engineering Limited, which I'll come to. I'll give you the citation, or you can take note of the citation right away. 2008, volume 7 SCC, page 169. 2008, volume 7 SCC, page 169, Consolidated Engineering. It has discussed with regard to applicability of limitation to some provisions of Arbitration and Conciliation Act. Portion of that judgment is controversial. I will be dealing with that essential part of my discussion here. So, by virtue of section 43, the provisions of Limitation Act become applicable to arbitrations, but not to arbitration appeals. Now, let us see what is the provision in Limitation Act. In Limitation Act, there are provisions of appeal. There is a separate chapter in the schedule. The schedule of Limitation Act has 3 parts. First is suits, second is appeals, third is applications. With regard to appeals, there are only 4 articles. Article 114, 115, 116, 117. 114 deals with criminal appeals against acquittal. 115 deals with criminal appeals against conviction. 116 deals with appeals under CPC. And 117 deals with appeals against decree or order from High Court to High Court. Under the Article 117, the proceedings of Section 37 before Calcutta High Court, Bombay High Court, Madras High Court, etc. will be subject to limitation, because there the appeals are filed from an order of High Court to another to High Court before the, as I said, Section 34 proceedings are entertained by the High Courts in those High Courts, and then appeals. Mr. Arvind Sharma, kindly mute your mic, please. Please mute your mic.
Hello.
Arvind ji, please mute your mic. Thank you very much. So, Article 117 of the Limitation Act might apply or should apply for Section 37 appeals, which are preferred in few High Courts against orders passed in Section 34 by the High Court itself. But say Jharkhand High Court or other non-chartered High Courts, where the Section 34 orders, the first challenges are preferred before sub-judge or commercial court or district judge, all treated as principal civil court of original jurisdiction. There is no corresponding provision, there is no corresponding article. The closest could be Article 116. And in fact, the Honorable Supreme Court has held that it is this article will apply. And I'm going to criticize that finding. Article 116 says appeals under CPC. The language is, if you may allow me to just refer to the text, the language is under the Code of Civil Procedure. So appeals under the Code of Civil Procedure is the language under Article 116. This is not an appeal under Code of Civil Procedure. Now, a beautiful pronouncement of the Supreme Court came in 1964 by a Constitution Bench judgment, 5-judge bench judgment. That pronouncement of the Supreme Court was with respect to Representation of People's Act. In that, the question was with regard to limitation of, with regard to applicability of CPC to the provisions of Representation of People's Act. And the Honorable Supreme Court held about this Article 116, which talks about CPC appeals. Please bear in your mind, Article 116 talks about CPC appeals. In short, I'll refer to it like that. Article 116, which talks about CPC appeals, has been construed by the Supreme Court in that 5 judgment to mean all appeals which are not prescribed only under CPC, but in other statutes also, provided those appeals are also governed by CPC's procedure. I just repeat it. 64 judgment said, Article 116, which provides for limitation for CPC appeals, which will cover all appeals under other statutes also, which are governed by CPC procedure of appeal. So this brings us to the position as to whether our section 37 appeals are also governed by CPC procedure of appeal or not. In 64 judgment, the 64 judgment has been referred to in Consolidated Engineering, of which I have given you the citation. So I will not repeat the citation, but it is AIR 1964 Supreme Court, page 1099. In that judgment, reference was to Representation of People's Act. Representation of People's Act had a specific provision that the appeals under this act will be governed by CPC. In light of that, the Honorable Supreme Court was right in interpreting that all the appeals under Representation of People's Act will be governed by Article 116. You will be finding it pertinent to note that similar provision like Representation of People's Act was also there in Old Arbitration Act of 1940, section 41. That also said that the appeals under this act will be governed by CPC. It in fact said all proceedings including appeals, CPC will apply. There was a specific provision. So had we been considering an appeal under the old act, Article 116 of the Limitation Act is an answer. But under section 37 of the new act, Article 116 may not apply. It will apply only if some pronouncement comes to say that CPC is applicable to 1996 Act or CPC is applicable to section 37 appeals. I will just pause here for a moment and give you some time to think about it. Question is whether CPC applies to 1996 Act or not, whether CPC applies to section 37 appeals or not. Consolidated Engineering Judgment, which is reported in 2008 volume 7 SCC 169, is a judgment by 3 honorable judges. The issue in that case was not limitation of section 37. The issue was limitation in section 34, whether section 14 of the Limitation Act applies or not. You know, as I said, section 34 of the 1996 Act provides for non-condonable limitation after 120 days. So somebody argued that all right, don't condone, but you can certainly exclude. Section 14 of the Limitation Act provides for exclusion. Condonation is when something is time barred, but exclusion is something by effect of which it will never be time barred. Exclusion under section 14 is when you are preferring an appeal before a wrong forum in good faith. So that period is not counted as running of limitation. Section 14 will apply to section 34. Section 14 of the Limitation Act will apply to section 34 proceeding or not was the question. 2 honorable judges gave a judgment saying that it will apply. That's all right. 1 honorable judge gave a different judgment, concurring view that it will apply to section 34 first challenge limitation act will apply and all that. In course of doing that honorable single judge, Honorable Justice Ravindran, went into another aspect as to whether Limitation Act applies to whether there is any limitation to section 37 or not, and gave an obiter dicta saying that it will apply to section 37 appeals. His Lordship said that Article 116 of the Limitation Act will apply to Section 37 appeals. Why? Because in 64 Supreme Court has said so. Without appreciating that in 64 Supreme Court, consideration was of Representation of People's Act, which had an entirely different provision that CPC will apply, which is not there in the new act, which was there in the old act. Legislature has made a very conscious omission, not making any provision with regard to CPC intervention in new act. And there is a reason why legislature has done that. I'll come to that, but before that, let me point out that this judgment of Honorable Justice Ravindran, this view, being obiter dicta, has been commented as such by Rajasthan High Court. Honorable Rajasthan High Court, in a judgment in 2012, which you will find in 2013, SCC Online, Rajasthan, 2013, SCC Online, Rajasthan, page 4243. Rajasthan High Court was confronted with the same question as to whether in section 37 there is any limitation or not. Consolidated was cited, Honorable Justice Ravindran view was cited, and somebody like the view that I am taking argued that it is obiter dicta, it has not considered XYZ. And the Rajasthan High Court said, yes, it is obiter dicta, it is not binding, it is a subject matter of respect. It is a different aspect of the story that in Rajasthan, the High Court has framed a rule prescribing for limitation under section 37 appeals. Jharkhand High Court has not. So in Rajasthan, still, section 37 proceeding could be subjected to an appeal. On the other hand, Bombay High Court gave first judgment on this aspect as to whether at all any limitation is there or not. In AIR 2005's Bombay, Jackson versus ONGC, AIR 2005 Bombay 335. The Bombay High Court has considered this aspect. It was, of course, before consolidated in 2008, and said that there is no limitation prescribed for section 37, and therefore it is not subject to any limitation at all. The answer as to what would be the period within which an appeal has to be filed has been given by the Bombay High Court by saying reasonable period. If statute prescribes no limitation, it is well settled that application has to be filed within a reasonable period. So it is left to the judges to consider. But Bombay High Court in 2005, Rajasthan High Court in 2012, and in between this judgment of consolidated, which specifically says from a judgment of the Supreme Court, which says Article 116 of the Limitation Act will apply. So we are left with a situation to argue that this judgment is not binding. It is not binding because it has not considered the provision of law which was considered in that judgment of Constitution Bench 1964, which they were considering. And stark contrast with the old act, which specifically said CPC will apply. The matter does not end here, my friends. Without referring to consolidated, of course, consolidated was not there in 2002. The Supreme Court held in context of something else, in context of the question as to whether revision under section 115 of CPC will be possible or not in this line of series of challenges under Arbitration and Conciliation Act. That judgment was pronounced in 2002, which said that CPC will apply. This judgment which said CPC will apply was, as I said, considering the proposition, the question as to whether revision under section 115 CPC will apply or not. It was a two-judge bench judgment. The judgment is ITI versus Siemens Engineering. It is reported in AIR 2002 Supreme Court, AIR 2002 Supreme Court, page 2308. And in ITI versus Siemens Engineering, I don't know how it was possible, but the section 37 order, that is second challenge, was passed by the civil court. The civil court in the jurisdiction of Bangalore High Court, Karnataka High Court, had passed the section 37 order. I don't know how that, under what rules that was possible, but first challenge was before the civil court and the second challenge is also before the civil court. In that context, it was argued before the Supreme Court that if it is an order of civil court, then civil court's control proceedings, CPC's control proceedings will apply. And the court said yes. So control proceeding is revision. That's how CPC controls revision, kind of a supervisory power. So in the context of CPC being CPC's section 115 civil revision being applicable, the Supreme Court said it will apply. What Supreme Court missed in this case has been discussed in later judgments, which I'm going to point out. When they said CPC will apply, or when anybody says CPC will apply to new act, that creates a very challenging situation. The new act is a self-contained code. There are 4 or 5 judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court in series which has refused to apply one or other provision of CPC on the ground that it is a self-contained code. Meaning of a self-contained code is that there is a negative import, that whatever has not been prescribed specifically has not been provided for. So if application of CPC has not been prescribed specifically in the new act, my humble submission is, then CPC will not apply. If CPC will not apply, Article 116 of Limitation Act will not apply. So there is no limitation. We have to see, we have to check this proposition, how far Supreme Courts have supported this self-contained code aspect. On this self-contained code aspect, one judgment was with respect to the old code, old Arbitration Act, P.S. Sathappan. I will not give citation of those judgments which ultimately have been cited in the last judgment, which I will give you citation of. So P.S. Sathappan is a 5-judgment judgment before whom the question was whether LPA is maintainable or not in Arbitration Act matters. The court said no. And in course of doing that, the court said in the old act that whatever has not been prescribed specifically is not permissible because it is a self-arbitration act. Old act was also a self-contained code. If you see the language in the opening line of the act, you will find there is a language with respect to the act being consolidating act. So it was a self-contained code, and therefore whatever was not prescribed, it will be deemed not to be provided for, and therefore they said LPA is not prescribed. Following this, ignoring consolidated, because consolidated had not been gone into this this aspect of self-contained code. Following this, in 2011, another judgment of the Supreme Court, Thursday Lawson. I'm not giving citation because again I will give the last judgment takes care of this judgment also. Thursday Lawson, that also discussed about certain provisions of the new code and said it is a self-contained code. It said when the old act was a self-contained code, then the new act is all the more a self-contained code because of its objects and purpose, speedy resolution of dispute and all. So they are now taking care of the object and purposes of the 1996 Act. And in 2011, they are saying it's a self-contained code. It implies a negative import, which means whatever has not been specifically provided for is not provided at all. And therefore, there is no applicability of CPC. Thursday Lawson has been, and P.S. Sathappan has been taken note of in a recent judgment of 2017 by Honorable Justice Deepak Mishra in a 2-judge bench equal to ITI versus Siemens. Their lordships in this 2-judge bench judgment of MTNL have said that they do not agree with the view taken by 2002 judgment in ITI versus Siemens. And since 2 judges could not differ and decide, so they have deferred and referred to a larger bench. And in course of doing that, they have not in fact discussed consolidated. Consolidated nobody is discussing because it doesn't discuss the basis on which it has been pronounced. But they have discussed, the beauty of the matter is that in MTNL, in 2017 judgment, what was in question is applicability of CPC to appeals under the 1997 Act. The question was whether cross objection is available in appeal under section 37 or not. Availability of cross objection will depend upon applicability of CPC Order 41, Rule 22. Order 41 Rule 22 CPC provides for cross objection, which is nothing but an appeal. And question was whether that will apply or not in Section 37 appeals in Arbitration and Conciliation Act. So there, Honorable Justice Deepak Mishra's judgment in MTNL has said that it will not apply. The appeals under Section 37 are not to be governed by CPC. So we go back to the question decided by Constitution Bench of 1964. If appeals are not to be governed by CPC, then there is no way that we can read Limitation Act's Article 116 into Section 37 of this Act. The citation of MTNL is 2017, Volume 2 SCC, page 37. 2017, Volume 2 SCC, page 37. I would request all of you to go through this judgment if you are interested. This discusses the earlier judgments, and it gives reasons as to why their lordships are differing with the earlier view, which said that CPC is applicable. After this 2017 judgment, again, there are a few judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court which have taken note of that negative import theory, self-contained code theory. One of them is Kandla Exports, which was dealing with the law relating to commercial appeals, whether commercial appeals are maintainable against certain orders passed under the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996 or not. Kandla Export is one judgment which I can lay my hands on. That's 2018, Volume 14 SCC, page 715. 2018, Volume 14 SCC, page 715. And now recently, an interesting pronouncement has come from the Honorable Supreme Court. A 3-judge bench judgment in Deep Industries, which is reported in 2019, SCC Online Supreme Court, page 1602, where it was argued that Article 227 interference is permissible or not. Article 227 under the Constitution, you all know that it is supervisory power of the High Court. And interim orders which were passed under the Arbitration and Conciliation Act were sought to be challenged under Article 227. In context of that, the Honorable Supreme Court said that Article 227 is something which cannot be curtailed by any statute, of course, but then it has to be exercised in a very, very rare case where there is patent lack of jurisdiction, a Kangari court deciding something. In that also, while discussing why Article 227 power should not be exercised to challenge any order passed under the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996, their lordships have held that is because this new act is a self-contained code, there is a negative import, whatever has not been prescribed, please don't use. So in this judgment, they have also dealt with slightly with regard to revisional jurisdiction being applicable or not under Section 115 CPC. More details you will be able to appreciate by going through the judgments. It is not possible to discuss in this limited time. After this 90 days thing is over, so my submission is that statute actually does not prescribe for any limitation. Now it will depend upon what happens in the reference to the larger bench which has been done in MTNL case. If ultimately the larger bench decides that CPC is applicable to appeals under Section 37, then Limitation Act will apply. Article 116 will apply, 90 days would be the limitation. Now coming to the next part of it, which is the more complicated aspect, which has come in the recent pronouncement. With a shortage of time, I will short circuit it. 120 days is what Supreme Court says in Varindra and NV International, which are reported in 2020, as I said. The Honorable Supreme Court said that we find that Section 34 is subjected to a drill. File a challenge within 90 days. If you are not able to file it within 30 days more. If you are not able to file it, forget it. So Varindra and NV International, the Honorable Supreme Court says the drill of Section 34 will have to be followed in 37 also. There's the language they have used. We believe, we hold that the same drill will be followed in Section 37 appeals as is followed in Section 34. Why? Where is the legislative sanction? Are you is the Honorable Supreme Court rewriting the statute? All that has not been discussed, not been argued, no opportunity to the advocates, point not raised, issues not framed, simply decided. Now that judgment was not known to anybody. It was a one-page judgment. It was not known to anybody till some other party. It was pronounced in 2018. Some other case came up before the Supreme Court in 2020, NV International. And in 2020, reported in 2020, volume 2, SCC, page 109, they said, we have already decided. In that NV International case, the two sides were arguing on sufficient cause. Look at the beauty of the matter. Everybody is proceeding under the assumption that 90 days is the limitation. And beyond 90 days, they are asking for condonation. And both parties are arguing that there is sufficient cause and there is no sufficient cause. Nobody is talking about 120 days having been breached and therefore forget about sufficient cause. There can be no condonation. The Honorable Supreme Court says, the same honorable author was the author of the judgment, said, we have already decided this. It can't go beyond 120 days. Forget it. In those cases, it was beyond 120 days. And they did, and they said so in those cases in which Section 37 appeals were heard and decided, entertained or not entertained, much before passing of these judgments by the Supreme Court, by this clarification that 120 days cannot be breached at all. So it has come as a shock to those who are entertaining a belief by virtue of silence in the legislation with regard to any outer limit. Sir, can you please mute your mic? Thank you very much. Although he is my senior, he has been muting me in physical appearances. So coming back to Varindra and NV, which is the bone of contention here, they said in NV International, the later judgment, they said, all that we have done is that we have prescribed 30 days grace period to what was prescribed by statute as 90 days. The first argument, which I am doing, nobody did, of course. Nobody, it was not a question entertained before the Supreme Court that 90 days is also not prescribed in any statute. If the theory, that if the assumption that 90 days is prescribed as the prescribed period of limitation goes, then everything goes. But assuming that 90 days period is there, the Honorable Supreme Court has said we are prescribing a grace period. Now this amounts to rewriting the statute. This is not casus omicus. This is not what legislature has, what we can say legislature has omitted by ignorance. Casus omicus is something which is a justification when the courts read into law what is not there. But it is not one such. And in support of my submissions, I will refer to few pronouncements of the Supreme Court. For example, there is one judgment of the Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court, reported in AIR 2002 Supreme Court, page 1334. AIR 2002 Supreme Court, page 1334. Padma Sundara Rao, 5 judges bench judgment. In that, the question before the Supreme Court was, can court rewrite the limitation for an executive action? Executive action in question was when a notification is issued under the Land Acquisition Act, the first notification. Then for issuance of final notification under Land Acquisition Act for acquiring a land, there is a statutory period, limitation. In a given case, what happened was that the first notification was quashed. And after quashment by the High Court of the first notification, this entire period got spent. So the courts came up with the solution that if first notification has been quashed and a fresh notification is being issued, then we have to calculate it from the date of High Court's order, when it has been quashed, not from the old date, because it is nobody's fault. The Constitution Bench considered this and said, no, you can't do this. Legislature in so many words has said 1 year or 2 year or 3 year from the date of issuance of first notification. So if the first notification has been issued, it has been quashed, some time has been spent, nothing doing. You can't issue the notification, second notification, because it is time barred. So in context of executive actions limitation, the courts have said that limitation, the courts cannot rewrite. Now this 5-judgment judgment, nobody has argued, that principle has nobody has argued in that one-page judgment of one page each judgments of Varindra and NV International. There is another judgment, Ajaib Singh, in 1999, volume 6 SCC, 1999, volume 6 SCC, page 82. Ajaib Singh was a case in which consideration was as to within how much time an industrial dispute should be raised. There was no specific period provided. The labor law was being interpreted with the help of certain principles of interpretation which applies to labor laws. And the question was that if there is no limitation provided, what will be the time within which a challenge can be entertained? The Punjab and Haryana High Court said that yes, reasonable period should be there, and according to us, reasonable period should be 5 years in all cases. So indirectly what they did is they prescribed a limitation. 5 years for raising the industrial dispute or for raising some challenge under the ID Act, holding that there is no limitation prescribed in the statute. Now this is what to an extent is being done by these two judgments, Varindra and NV International. Here they are not prescribing limitation, they are prescribing the outer limit of condonation of limitation. There in 1999, Ajaib Singh, the Supreme Court said, this prescription of limitation cannot be done by the courts. It cannot be done. It is sole and whole the job of the legislature, and they have gone to the extent of saying that it cannot be done by the courts even by applying the philosophies that the judges believe in, the object and purposes of the act and all that, which perhaps has weighed in the mind of the Honorable Supreme Court in Varindra and NV International when they said that we need to see the object of the statute and prescribed an outer limit also. So 99 Ajaib Singh judgment, of course nobody has argued, it's a 2-judgment judgment, but the principles which have been laid down below, they were law. The law which was holding the field in the country ought to have been cited. These judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court at later stages have gone sub silentio without looking into all that. There is one more judgment of the Supreme Court, AIR 1980 Supreme Court, 1980, AIR 1980 Supreme Court 1707. This is Rajput Huda Mehta. It's a celebrated judgment which deals with the issue that a court's judgment is an authority only on the point which was argued before it. It is not an authority on the point which was not an issue before it. To an extent, this judgment will apply to NV International and Varindra. Lawyers have not argued. Issues were not framed. They were not put to notice that this is a question which they have to answer. In my respectful reading, I may be wrong. In that case, in Rajput Huda Mehta, the situation was that some provisions of CRPC was in their consideration, and they said that the court said that although it has not been argued, but we are going into in-depth issues. We are making in-depth consideration of this issue, and we are deciding. And they said that even upon in-depth consideration, the court could not have decided what it has decided, because this was not the question before the court. This was not which was being argued, which was being addressed by the judges. So these, by and large, the abstract principles are relevant to the discussion when we critically analyze the judgment of Varindra and NV International. And my dear friends, the latest position is that 3 days back, when I and Rahul Sabu have already discussed that I want to give a talk on this topic. 3 days back, the Honorable Supreme Court, a bench led by Honorable Justice Ramanna, has appreciated this aspect and issued notice on the question as to whether Varindra and NV International have been rightly decided or not. That order, which has been passed on 22nd of September, Tuesday, has not been uploaded on the web. but I know because I know the councils who are conducting that matter. The case number is SLP 7312 of 2020, NTPC Limited versus Void, so and so. So NTPC. In this matter, what I've been told, what has happened is that the honorable bench of the Supreme Court said that even if we condone the limitation, the delay, even if we don't follow Varindra and NV International, nevertheless, there is no merit in the appeal, which is said to be time barred. Their award is good enough, so the challenge to the award stands dismissed. But then the Solicitor General of India, the learned Solicitor General of India, requested for deciding this question as to whether Varindra and NV International have been rightly decided or not, and they have issued notice on this limited point. That's what has been made to be understood by me. My friends, before I finish, I'll just say one thing. Please guard, the advocates, please guard in the given situation. We don't know what will be the ultimate outcome. Whether NV International and Varindra would be eventually overruled or not. Whether they will be clarified to mean that they will only apply prospectively, they will only apply to future cases or not, we don't know. We don't know what will be the fate of that 2017 MTNL judgment, which said that on the question of applicability of CPC in 1996 Act, we have to refer to larger bench. So as on date, the position for us is that 120 days is the limitation. But please guard against one thing. Please keep in mind that limitation would be 90 days. And 30 days is only the grace period. And this grace period is something beyond which you should not jump, no matter what, because even under Article 142, Supreme Court is not going to condone this grace period. The reason is that way back in 2012, there is a judgment of 2012, Volume 2, SCC 624, Assam Urban Water Supply Judgment. In that judgment, the Honorable Supreme Court said, with regard to perimeter area provision in Electricity Act, that such non-condonable limitations cannot be condoned with the help of Article 142. And all know what has happened recently when this lockdown was introduced due to pandemic. On 23rd of March, general order was passed by the Honorable Supreme Court, effective from 15th of March, saying that all limitation will stand extended. All limitations will stand extended, whether condonable or not. But the later pronouncement of the Honorable Supreme Court, which has been again given few days back, which has been pronounced on 18th of September 2020. 18th of September 2020, the latest pronouncement of the Honorable Supreme Court is interpreting its own order of lockdown, saying that whatever we have said about extension of limitation is with regard to limitation of the prescribed period, that means 90 days, and not with regard to the extended period, which is the condonable period. So this judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court of 18/9/2020 is in civil appeal number 3007 of 20. Shagufa Ahmed. It's not reported, so I'm giving you the citation. So all said and done, ultimately the position is that we are in a quandary. We don't know what will be tomorrow the position, but today the position is that by certain pronouncements not reached in the manner usually the judicial orders are supposed to be reached, say that there is a 90-day limitation and there is 120 day of outer limit. With this, I end my talk and I invite questions. I hope I was clear enough. I don't know, it was a complicated topic. I don't know how far it has gone through the mind of the students who are there. My friends who are there practicing, they already know the topic, so they must have been able to grasp it very easily. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a wonderful deliberation on the topic limitation in appeals under Section 37 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996. After the end of this webinar, we would request you to kindly provide us with the list of judgments referred by you in your lecture.
Sure.
We once again thank you so much, sir, for this
Thank you.
wonderful speech. Now, time for question and answer session, as we always do in our webinar. I would request the participants, if they have any query with respect to the topic on which the lecture was given by our respected guest speaker, they may put the question directly to him, or they can also put their questions on the chat box.
But don't call it a lecture, Rahul. We have our seniors here. It's just a talk, a discussion with all of you. I would love to invite comments also, not only questions. The comments, the criticism.
In fact, I correct myself. It's a talk. It's a knowledge sharing platform.
Yes. And I would love to invite the criticism also of the views that I have expressed.
Now I think we can conclude the session. No questions as such. In fact, the congratulatory messages are coming for this wonderful and splendid.
Any question means it's very, very risky proposition. That means
No.
I don't say.
Now I request Advocate Avnish Ranjan Mishra ji to kindly convey the vote of thanks to our guest speaker and all the participants present here, to the senior advocates, to the members of the bar, and everyone. Over to you, Avnish Ranjan Mishra ji.
Thank you, Sabuji. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to take your kind permission for delivering my vote of thanks in our mother tongue Hindi. This is as because we have already celebrated our Hindi Day on 14th of September itself, or now Hindi fortnight is going on. And so far as my personal opinion is concerned, I think Hindi is our mother and Urdu is our mausi. So we include some Urdu alfaz also, with your very kind permission.
Yes, yes.
सर्वप्रथम मैं समय की शिला पर विविध चित्र कितने, किसी ने बनाए किसी ने मिटाए, परंतु इस वितंतु संगोष्ठी के मंच पर श्रीमान राहुल साबू, वर्तमान में स्थायी सलाहकार झारखंड सरकार, ने अनवरत अविराम वेबिनार की श्रृंखला से, वितंतु संगोष्ठी की श्रृंखला से जिस तरह से मंच साझा कर विषय को प्रस्तुत करने हेतु विद्वत जनों का, मूर्धन्य मनीषियों का समावेश इस समंदर में किया है, वो गागर में सागर के समान है। इसलिए मेरा सर्वप्रथम धन्यवाद लीगल लिटरेसी फोरम को, लीगल लिटरेसी फोरम के श्रीमान राहुल साबू जी को हमारा हृदय तल से कोटिशः साधुवाद। तदोपरांत मैं हृदय तल से आज के अतिथि वक्ता हमारे सीनियर श्रीमान पांडे नीरज राय सर को कोटिशः साधुवाद। जिस तरीके से उन्होंने विषय की व्याख्या की है, वस्तुतः यह विषय मेरे समझ से, मेरे विषय से अलग आयाम का रहा, परंतु मैंने भी इसका रसास्वादन अनवरत 1 घंटे तक किया और मुझे भी बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिला, जैसा हर कड़ी में सीखने को मिलता है। तो इसलिए आज के अतिथि व्याख्याता महोदय का हमारा हृदय तल से कोटिशः साधुवाद। जिस तरीके से उन्होंने विषय की व्याख्या की वह वास्तव में अद्वितीय, ऐतिहासिक, असमानांतर था। पुनः इस मंच पर जितने भी श्रोता और दर्शक उपलब्ध थे, हमारे माननीय सभी वरीय अधिवक्ताओं का हृदय तल से साधुवाद, हमारे सभी मित्र, हमारे सभी कनीय, सभी लोगों का हृदय तल से साधुवाद। पुनश्च तकनीकी जो कर्मी इस संगोष्ठी का सफल आयोजन करने के पीछे नेपथ्य में रहे, उनका भी हृदय तल से कोटिशः साधुवाद। मैं जो इस संगोष्ठी में समझ पाया उसको मैं अंततः एक शेर की 2 पंक्तियों से कहना चाहूंगा। जिस तरीके से माननीय वक्ता महोदय ने कहा, विधायिका की त्रुटियों पर और विलंब को विलोमित करने को लेकर के जो कंडोनेशन ऑफ डिले की बात हो रही थी, उसके संदर्भ में मैं 2 पंक्तियों से सबका धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करके अपनी वाणी को विराम दूंगा। मुलाहिजा फरमाइएगा। फकत एक चांद गवाह था मेरी बेगुनाही का, फकत एक चांद गवाह था मेरी बेगुनाही का, और अदालत ने तारीख अमावस की रात मुकर्रर कर दी। यही मेरी समझ में आया। ठीक है, धन्यवाद सभी को, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, हृदय तल से कोटिशः साधुवाद, कोटिशः आभार, नमस्कार।
आप सबों का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Thank you everyone
Welcome.
for participating.